Live from our studios in New York City and San Francisco, it's First and Life with your hosts Corey Lucci and Steve Hoyam. We tackle talk with purpose.
And welcome everybody to another Lucci, and here we are again. We apologize to our audience who maybe tuned in last week and couldn't find us. We didn't have a show. We tried to do it. We just won too many technical difficulties, I guess, Corey, right?
Yeah, buddy. I was out in Phoenix at the OAC conference, and I guess it just was not meant to be. But anyway, right. We're back, better than ever. Here we go.
And you are listening to First and Life, and First and Life is available on the internet. You can find us at www.firstandlife.com, firstandlife.com. We'd love you to have you check out our website, spend some time there, getting to know Corey and I. Send us some love on Facebook, LinkedIn. What else? Twitter. Yeah, we do tweet from time to time, so you can find us on Twitter. And we would love to have you call in today if you're listening live at 714-510-3759. Corey, we've got a great show today. You mentioned the conference you were at. The second half of our show, we're going to bring on a guest, Rob Ann, who you met at the conference and has an amazing story. And like all amazing stories, especially the heroic journey type stories, we love to have those people on. Rob Ann has written a book, has gone through this amazing weight loss journey, and really it's about a health journey and becoming strong. That's her motto, or
tagline, if you will. Get your
is strong as the new skinny.
StrongOn.net.
Yeah, that's right. So that will be coming at half past the hour. Right now, we want to bring to you some of the latest and not so greatest headlines from the world of football. Corey, we were talking about what to lead in with, and frankly, it's a no-brainer, no pun intended here, but the CTE story is something that's near and dear to both of us, and there's a disturbing story that came out in the New York Times, just kind of broke this morning, basically, about CTE and the documentary that Frontline had been working on for over a year and a half with ESPN. The head of ESPN and Roger Goodell and a couple of other executives had a sit-down meeting, apparently, and ESPN decided to back out of this documentary. And, basically, no matter what was said or not said, I mean, it's pretty clear that the NFL, Roger Goodell, leaned on ESPN as only the NFL could lean on a company like ESPN, and told them they're not happy with the story. I don't think anyone's happy with the story. What do you think, Corey?
Well, I agree with you, Brian. I think what's not surprising. Let me keep this real. I've always said that, Steve, this is about money, and it's about a lot of it. The fact that ESPN could, if you will, clear back and grant and pay for it, some reporters to go out and to research this and spend, God knows how many hours over the past year and a half, almost 2 years, to actually create a piece like this, and then in the 11th hour, if you will, to sort of pull the plug on it, tells you who has the power and who has the money. ESPN paid roughly a little over $18 billion to carry Monday night games and a couple games out of on Thursday night. And I tell you, man, you want to talk about setting a precedent. You pay the quote unquote end users over $18 billion, and they tell you to pull the plug on a documentary, and you do it. That tells you right there who's truly yielding all of the power.
Right. It is, and it's scary because as former players, we are all too aware of what has happened to our bodies and mentally and physically and everything else. I don't think the current players are as aware. I just don't see how they could be. You could have told me at age 21 that this is going to happen or that's going to happen, or you're not going to be able to walk, or it's going to really hurt to get up in the morning, or you're not going to remember if you brushed your teeth or not. that that would not make sense to a 21-year-old who is getting paid a lot of money. It's literally like showing them a brick wall and saying, okay, here's a big pile of cash, and you hit that wall as hard as you possibly can. Eventually guys are going to start killing themselves as they hit that wall, because that pile of money is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and guys are getting bigger and stronger and faster, and the wall is still a wall. But our bodies are just not designed to hit the wall or other walls at that speed and walk away from it, at least the way we were coached to play. And there's so many things that need to be done, but standing in the way of telling the story and releasing the information that needs to get out there is just not a good way to start this discussion or to continue the discussion. And it's frankly, I find it very annoying because the NFL is trying to tell us that they are concerned, as they should be. I mean, if for no other reason, you've got a sport that is worth billions and billions of dollars. People love to watch it. People love to play it. I loved playing football, but I see a sport that's going down the path of boxing. How many high schools have a boxing team?
Oh, none.
I mean, you go back 50, 60 years, and every high school had a boxing team.
Right, and I guess it also leads me to think back to on a comment I heard made by former Pittsburgh Steeler James Harrison. He was quoted as saying before he tore up his knee, okay, and I'm quoting him, that he would rather take a shot in the head, because if you told him that he had to walk away from the game at 30-something, because of a concussion, he could live with it. But if you told him at 20-something he had to walk away from the game because he basically tore up his knee, he couldn't live with it. And this came about because of the tight end for the Dolphins, and pardon me, folks, his name is slipping me right now. Dustin Keller. He used to play. Yeah, he got his knee torn up the other night, and I don't know if any of our fans happen to see the game, but it was horrific for him. It got bent back and twisted in a way that obviously your knee shouldn't. And the kid that hit him said, "Well, I didn't have a choice." And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, if I'd have hit him high because of how he caught the ball, they would have fined me." Right. And it's kind of scary, but he was telling the honest to get the truth. He's like, because he was catching the ball, and as they say, you can't hit a receiver, keyword, defenseless receiver, while he's in the act of actually catching the ball. Yeah. So this kid decides to hit him low, and he tears his knee up. It's call me crazy. I think it's getting to a point to where football is a game about read and then react and actually hit. Yeah. Now I think it's turning into a game of read, react, and okay, now I can hit. Yep. And truth be told, I don't think the game was meant to be played like that. I don't want to see guys, obviously walk away with brain injuries or issues at a later date and time. But at this point, something else has to be done. Yeah. I mean, I know that in practice, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, Corey, but my thought on football, as I experienced football, was anytime you had a differential between how one guy was practicing versus another guy, like if there was one guy going three-quarter speed or half speed and another guy going full speed, that difference in approach, if you will, is probably going to lead to an injury. And that's why you would see more injuries, or I would see more injuries in practices that were kind of like that, maybe just shell and guys were uncertain, are we full speed? Are we half speed? Are we three-quarter speed? Are we walk through? And, there was just that nagging doubt. Think about this. Now that you say that, now that you pose that question, I could think of several times in practice going against Phil Hansen. He would actually ask you, is this full speed or is this, hit, bang, bang, meaning he takes a good first step, he makes a move, and then you actually stop. And I remember Bruce Smith telling me, this is not full speed. In other words, he's going to do his first move. You can try to react to his first move, and then you pretty much shut it down. But no, you're right. You're absolutely right, man. But I don't know. I just think we're in uncharted waters right now. territory, if you will. I do believe that football will go on. I do believe that the game is going to change, and we may lose some fans because of it. Obviously, this is going to be an interesting year because they've already fined. I think something like there's been like a record number of fines given out this preseason. One kid played for the Chicago Bears. A fine that would have last year been like $7,000. They fined him $21,000.
Yeah.
So that's a game. I don't care what anyone says. When you start talking about game check, that gets people attention, and it gets it quickly.
Oh, yeah. You feel it right away.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, go to anyone and say, hey, how would it feel if your boss decided not to pay you this week? And you multiply that by, at least 2 or 3 because, one game check in the NFL is equivalent to, at least 3 or 4 paychecks over the year because you're only getting paid over 20 weeks, right? I mean, or even less. Yeah.
17 weeks if you will.
So that's your annual salary in a very condensed amount of time, and you take away one of those 17 paychecks, and you're feeling it. But your point is absolutely right, Corey. I mean, so there's a significant financial incentive to play differently, and guys are not coached to play differently yet. I mean, the coaching needs to start in Little League, Pop Warner, high school, college, and then the NFL. We're starting from the NFL and trying to push the coaching down, and it's going to take some time, at least, to get that message across. But you've got rule changes about what the running back can do with his head and what the DBs can do with their head. And, D linemen have been being watched for a long time. But, with those big helmets on, sometimes it's just if you're avoiding the helmet-to-helmet stuff, you're going to have more knee injuries. You're going to have more bicep tears. You're going to have more of these freak injuries that we're starting to see in training camp. And it'll be interesting to see what the final numbers show, but how this season's injuries stack up to years before. That's what I want to know. So.
Well, I think you have a very, very valid point there, partner, and I guess we can all just stay tuned and see what happens.
Yeah. So I'm anxious to see this documentary from Frontline and ESPN. There's another movie that's coming out that we were talking about. You want to just touch on that real quick? Because I'd like to make sure that people are supporting these documentaries. And with or without ESPN, they need to learn more and become educated about CTE. And I'm not just talking about former players. Former players need the education, but everyone needs to know more about head injuries because it's not just football. It's girls soccer, it's basketball. I mean, the list goes on. And heck, you and I were talking about, one of the things about being a former football player, especially a former offensive tackle, is, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 6'5" to 6'8", guys like us. And sometimes doorways and cars and other things aren't quite built for guys our size. So, we've been hitting our heads all our lives. With or without football helmets.
Right.
And, the question was posed to me not too long ago is, how would you change your life if you knew that you could only have 4 more concussions before something really bad happened? Like, total, forget who you are type of bad. That made me think because, like you said, I had just gotten a concussion probably about, a month ago, and then within the week, I was experiencing some symptoms related to the concussion, and then I think it aggravated, the CTE that I may or may not have, because it hasn't been officially diagnosed yet. Probably won't be until I'm laying on an autopsy table somewhere, but the symptoms came on pretty strong, and I think it was related to that concussion, and I could go on and on and on, but the bottom line is head injuries are a serious thing, and it is a serious risk to the sport that we all love, and I don't want to see football go down in any worse way than it already is. I want to actually see the sport survive and thrive because I think it's just such a uniting force in our society, and it has so many great things to offer. It's given you and I both so many great opportunities and experiences. I don't want to be on that side of the fence where we're trying to get the sport kicked out of schools and eliminated. I'm not there, but I do want to see some serious, strong response by the NFL and everyone associated with the sport. So That's all I got to say about CTE, partner. Any final words before we move on?
No, I agree, Steve. We've had several conversations about this topic, man, and clearly we're on the same page. I just think that again, and I don't say this lightly, but to give guys some sense of, I guess, relief. That's why I think there should be a push for a state-of-the-art medical center open up somewhere in the middle of the country. And if you played the game, you should be able to go there from the day that you're done playing for free treatment for as long as you live.
Right.
There's clearly enough money in the game to actually offer something like that. But that's literally one of those things where it's too much like right and too much thinking outside of the box. So we'll unfortunately have to fight that battle from probably now until the time you and I both are dead and gone. One good thing is that look, they've made strides. I'm not going to sit here and say that the league in general and the PA hasn't made some strides. It's just that it's nowhere near where things need to be.
That's right. And the discussion it mirrors a lot of what we talk about in society around race and the issues that we continue to struggle with there, because there's been so much past injustice that it's difficult to get people to agree on how to make up for that, or to even possibly repair some of the damage that's been done. And that's where people need to take a deep breath and just think a little more big picture, and not just so much about my money today right now, because there, like you said, there's plenty of money out there to do the right thing. So I'll just leave it at that.
You're right, but unfortunately, that's where the big challenge comes in at. I think it's gonna for the most part always be there. And we have to watch, wait, and see. Thank God, I guess we don't have to have all of the answers today, but it would be nice to get some of the stuff, man.
Yep.
I'm moving on.
And so in just about 10 more minutes, we are going to be joined by Roban, and she is going to tell us about her heroic journey. But one of the other things before we bring on our guest, and we'll talk about the struggles that, again, besides the head struggles, the another health issue that's near and dear to our hearts is weight loss. You and I both had substantial weight loss, and we know the challenge of going from being someone that is viewed as a bigger than normal, bigger than life person, trying to transition into a more normal, healthy role that doesn't include football, and how the heaviest lifting that we have to do sometimes is pushing ourselves away from the table and just trying to take care of ourselves from an exercise and diet perspective. So that's a powerful message, powerful story. Maybe so if you want to call in and have any questions for our guest, our number is 714-510-3759. If you're listening to us live here on August 23rd, if not, you can check Roban's website out, and she can be found at www.getyourstrongon.net, and she's got a book on Amazon, and it really is a powerful story. Just real briefly, Corey, and this is in your neck of the woods, let's talk about some of the training camp battles. One of the bigger ones that, is even on this side of the country is the Geno Smith-Sanchez battle over in Jets land. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, man. It's been interesting thus far. As most of the folks know, Geno Smith was this kid that was a sure-handed first-round pick. Lo and behold, somehow he flips into the second round. And the Jets literally pick him up the very next day. And I personally think that since that day, that pretty much so spoke volumes towards the end of Mark Sanchez's career, with regards to being a Jet. I'm not saying that they would cut him this year, because they technically still owe him like $7 million on the books. So let's just say it like this: he could very much so end up being a $7 million backup. That's pretty quick if you think about it. I guess it's almost like, think of it like this. And look, hear me. By no means am I trying to say Geno is this and and Geno's that. But it's very similar to the Seahawks last year with Russell Wilson and Matt Flynn. But at least in the case with the Seahawks, they signed Matt Flynn during the offseason, and they paid him all this ridiculous money, and they drafted Wilson in the third round, and he, lo and behold, comes in and he beats this guy out. Sanchez at one point was looked upon as the franchise quarterback for the Jets, and he's just totally fell off, man. Now, in his defense, as hard as it is, he's had 3 different offensive coordinators, Steve, in the past 3 years, and we all know quarterback is too hard, especially in the National Football League. So I'm predicting that he'll probably end up going somewhere else. Maybe they can work out a trade for someone who needs a quarterback. The Jets will pay half of that $7 million, and whoever signs him will, give him the other 3.5, which I guess, technically speaking, that's somewhat of a bargain these days because you have backup quarterbacks, making between $2 and $3 million. That being said, Geno Smith is going to start the game Saturday night, so they're pretty much giving him every opportunity, Steve, that you could possibly want, man, as a rookie, to actually start. So who knows? We'll wait and see what happens, and I'll obviously keep everybody focused on. Keep everyone in tune of what's actually going on here with them and this quarterback not so controversy.
Right. Yeah, so I just scanning the headlines here. One of the things that caught our attention was just the Joe Flacco comments about Ray Lewis's absence in the locker room. I thought that was kind of funny. We both got a good chuckle out of that because Flacco, basically said 90% of the time he didn't even know what Ray was talking about. But
to all of our listeners, if you've ever watched a Baltimore Ravens game, and the first thing the cameras do is they pan the camera towards Ray Lewis when they're doing their little pregame warm up because he's doing this. What time is it? But to hear and quote, say it again, Steve. Flacco said what now?
He said. So Flacco he said Ray Lewis has been known to give a motivational speech or two. Let's see what I want to get right because Flacco said he said that's not me. I love Ray and I love how he always spoke from the heart. But if you listen to one of those speeches, a lot of them didn't even make sense. He meant everything he was saying, but I didn't know what he was talking about 90% of the time. So. Oh
my God! Look, see, folks out there, that's one of those situations where you just shut up.
Yeah.
Oh God. Oh man. But anyway, we're gonna let that one go.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear a soundbite of what Ray Lewis is really gonna say about Flacco, man. That's wow.
Before we bring on our guest, we have one caller that's joining us, and we're gonna put them on the air. And just so our listeners know, you're listening to First in Life, Friday, August 23rd, and I'm Steve Hoyam, and Corey Lucci is my other co-host, and here we are, just talking about CTE. Oh, Corey, I think we do need to move on to our next caller.
No. Let's bring on our guest.
All right. Here we are joined by Robin, and how's it going, Robin?
Hey guys, it's great. Thanks for having me on. How you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Oh, we're doing well. We're doing very, very well. Thank you for joining us. I've been so excited, just really counting down the time, thinking about this. You look, just so you know, and I've shared this story obviously with Steve and several other people. I went to a conference folks last week to speak and to headline, if you will, and I ended up being inspired by our guest, and she is phenomenal. Oh man. You listen. I want to have that YouTube at least break 100,000 views if we can, because that totally touched me.
I would love it.
Yeah, let's get that thing out there. Right, and we do have a link to that, on the show today. If you go to Robin's site, which is getyourstrongon.net, and you can find the video there. It's a powerful video, like Corey said, and also gives you some really great before and after pictures that really tell the story. A picture's worth 1,000 words. It does a lot better job at writing up than we did for the show today. But Rob-Ann, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us and joining First in Life today and talking about your story. So
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a chance to chat a little bit. Let's just start from the beginning and talk to our audience about your experience with food.
Mm-hmm. Wow. My entire life has been a struggle when it comes to food. From my earliest memories, about age 5 or so, I remember using food for comfort. Right then, my parents, they split up when I was pretty young, and I just remember immediately finding comfort in eating, and I kind of carried that all through childhood, and it was a little bit meaty, a little chunky kid. Got called Thunder Thighs. That was the nickname I carried for years, Thunder Thighs. And ironically, being on your show with some former NFL players, I played a little bit of tackle football in the neighborhood. Put those Thunder Thighs to work.
Exactly.
And so,
we're both, we also had that nickname, Thunder Thighs, and we played football. That's usually what you do if you want to get past that nickname. You play football. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure that was fun.
Yeah, I worked it for as long as I could, and then you get to a point where the boys aren't really noticing you, and I started to grow up and develop as a young woman, and so tackle football kind of wasn't too becoming, and it wasn't too easy on my body. So I tried to hang out with the girls and do the girly thing, and they were all in my mind thinner, prettier, that sort of thing. And so what happened for me is I started to want to be thin at any cost. I was tired of being called Thunder Thighs. Was tired of boys not noticing me unless we were talking football. And so I started to starve myself, and I was anorexic for several years, and that kind of morphed into bulimia, which is basically when you eat and throw up, and I did that for many years also, and I got pretty thin, real thin, and very unhealthy. Kind of fast forward through that, I ended up getting married and starting to have children and all that, and before I knew it, there was weight gain, and with each pregnancy, and kind of at that point I had started to eat because number one, I was so hungry from not eating for so long, and also just trying to be a normal pregnant lady and do the right thing there. But before I knew it, I was 100 plus pounds overweight. Then I got really depressed, and I completely gave up and decided that I'm just going to eat and who cares. And then I was 150 pounds overweight. Wow. That's kind of what happened. So I ballooned up to 300 pounds was my top weight.
Wow.
And I think that's what's so phenomenal about your story, because I personally have never met anyone that went from one end of this quote unquote spectrum to just the very opposite. I mean, look, I'm gonna tell you right now. You heard me speak. I hadn't been under 300 pounds since I was 15. But I was never anorexic, and I certainly didn't weigh 100 pounds. So tell me this then. Back when you were in high school, when you first started struggling with this, how much were you weighing now? Weighing then, excuse me.
Oh yeah, in high school I was anywhere between about 100 to 120 pounds, and I thought I was enormous. And I'm about 5'8" and change. I shouldn't be weighing 100, 110, 115 pounds. Right. And I was comparing myself to the gals that were 5 feet tall, and they should weigh 100 pounds. And so I was always trying to be where they were at. And I was just skin and bones walking around. And I wouldn't eat. And Diet Coke and gum was my lunch. That sort of thing. And just horrible. I always felt like I was going to pass out. Just low blood sugar, not eating enough, and had no energy. So that was pretty rough.
So going from skin and bones to morbidly obese, and you talked before with us about that feeling of hopelessness and being in that place. How did you go from that place to actually having some hope? What gave you hope?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. And it kind of chokes me up a little bit because those were my darkest moments, getting through all of that between, hitting rock bottom with anorexia and bulimia and, staring at myself in the mirror and seeing, I just looked at that like a hollow reflection staring right back at me. then going the other extreme, and I'm talking extreme, with the morbid obesity and, getting to that place and just being like so lost and so hopeless. And, those darkest moments when my life was really falling apart, I had no idea it was actually about to fall together. And what happened for me was I had a couple of real big health scares when I was 37 years old. I was just kind of talking to some folks at work and standing still, not doing a lot of physical activity, and my heart rate just went through the roof. I was just talking to somebody, and I couldn't catch my breath, and it felt like a jackhammer on the inside of my chest, just pounding, pounding, pounding. They put I ironically work at a hospital, so they put the pulse oximeter on my finger and took my vital signs, and my heart rate was 201 with no exertion, just out of nowhere, and blood pressure was through the roof, like 190s over 120s. So I got a one-way ticket to the ER that day, and I got real scared. But here's the crazy part. I didn't want to look at that. I didn't want to acknowledge that. I just wanted to forget about it, just get out of there and be okay, as okay as you can be, and just I didn't want to look at where I was at and have to actually do something about it. And the same thing happened, almost exactly the same thing happened 4 months later, and this time my heart rate was 206. And, I went to talk to my doctor, and he just said, look, Robanne, recess is over here, honey. You got to do something. And in between all the anorexia, bulimia, morbid obesity, that yo-yo up and down for years, my metabolism just was a hot mess. And, with all the things I have tried to diet and lose weight, I couldn't do it on my own, I'll be really honest, and I needed some help. So my doctor, he recommended a pretty, invasive approach. Definitely not the first stop, maybe the last stop if you've tried everything and it's not working. And for me, that was a bariatric procedure I had done 4 years ago. And
right.
That, I'll tell you what, and I write about it in the book that I wrote, and I did this journal entry 2 days before my surgery. I wrote it on August 2nd of 2009, and I mean, talk about depression on a piece of paper. And in that journal entry, I just put, I really don't know what I would do if I didn't have the surgery coming up. Even though I was scared to death, had no idea if it would work, petrified if I was going to be able to even follow the rules and do the right thing, because when you're addicted to food and you use it like I used it for so many years, used it and abused it, quite frankly. I mean, I knew what I was capable of, and I was scared of myself. But that little bit of a chance, I guess, gave me that glimmer of hope. Like this surgery, it won't fix me, but it just might help me. It just might give me the help I need.
Right. I've never had bariatric surgery. I've had a number of surgeries, but I've never had that surgery. I've experienced weight loss. I've talked about my struggles with addiction and alcohol abuse. What I'm hearing when you talk is what I hear from so many people who've struggled with addiction or a disorder like overeating, that they're turning it over. And I got that from your story about going into the emergency room and going to the operating room, rather, for this surgery. And you're finally at this point where you've turned it over and said, I can't do this by myself. I'm going to get help. And this was like that first step in your path of becoming a healthier, stronger you. And so the heroic journey begins with your time getting ready for surgery. And more importantly, you're deciding that this is not the beginning of the end, but rather it's the beginning of that next phase of the change that you need to make. So talk to us a little bit about how that came about and that realization that this was bigger than just the surgery.
Yeah, I like what you said about, turning it over. And, for me, I had to hit rock bottom and be out of options. And for whatever reason, this kid here doesn't change unless all that's happened. And for me, I was out of options, and I had tried what I thought was everything in terms of losing weight. So when I got to this place and I got to the operating room and I made it through the surgery, I was just grateful for that, number one, for everything. Everything went well, and I was okay there because, that isn't always the case. So I kind of immediately had that gratitude that, wow, okay, I got a chance. I'm healthy. And I kept telling myself, you're fat, you're not dead,
Right.
And just to kind of to inspire myself a little bit, to kind of cheer myself on. And when you get that second chance, and I really feel like for me, huge chance to get myself back together. It dawned on me that now it's the ball's in my court, basically, and this is up to me. They've done their part. They changed some things with my anatomy and my stomach. I got to comply. I got to do what I've got to do to make this work. And my surgeon and anybody who's ever had a bariatric procedure will tell you, you got to change a whole lot. And if you don't, you will lose weight for a period of time. And unfortunately, you may see this quite a bit if you know anybody in the bariatric community, you'll also see folks that don't change their lifestyle regain that weight back. And that's true for anybody, no matter how you lose your weight. If you don't make the lifestyle change, you're not going to stay there.
Right. And I see so many people wasting time talking about what's better. Is it diet or is it exercise? Like it's a choice, right? But the reality is it's everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have this little saying here: change your attitude, or change your mind, change your life. And you said something earlier, rock bottom and out of ops. That's something, as Oprah would say, tweet. But that is because that is deep and is so true. But fast forward now, tell us about how you walked into this gym, I think, one day and sort of never left again, and lead us into the great stuff now about everything that you're doing.
Oh yeah, woo! This is my favorite part to talk about. There was a day, not too long after my surgery, I was, sitting on the couch, love to sit on that couch. I had lost about 30 pounds, and I'm having that mental debate in my head, you got to go to the gym. You said you'd go. No, I don't want to go. And I think a lot of us have been there and do that back and forth in their mind. And I really didn't want to go, but I had agreed that I would do a half hour of walking every day after that surgery. And wouldn't you know, after I have the surgery, I just decide, you know what, I don't think I'm going to do that. So anyway, imagine that. So, I'm sitting there and I'm debating, and I said, you know what, Rob-Ann, you said you'd do it. Now get off your butt, get off this couch, and go do it. Because I really wanted to take a nap. I was waiting for a big fat nap, and I wasn't overeating, but I really didn't want to do much else other than just, do my old behavior, which is what got me where I was. So I got up off that couch, I got in my car. The radio, my car, I didn't listen to it a whole lot. I usually had like a CD player or something going on. Mm-hmm. Long story short is that radio was on, and over the radio, this guy starts talking about, it was a weight loss topic, and he said, you know what, I don't care how you lose your weight. I don't care how it happens for you. But if you don't change your lifestyle, you will not maintain that weight loss. And I tell you what, Corey and Steve, that message, I heard it. It's 2.6 miles from my house to the Y where I work out. That is the message that came over the radio in that 5 minutes it takes me to get there. And I tell you what, if I wasn't meant to hear that, I don't know what I was meant to hear in this life. And so I truly believe that was that message was tailor-made for me to hear, and thank goodness I was paying attention and ready to hear it, because that's the moment where things change for me. I got to the Y, I walk in that day, I get on the treadmill, and I'm going, you know what? And I tell you, like I said before, I'm fat, I'm not dead, because I was like, wow, you've lost 30 pounds. That's awesome. I'm telling myself, I hadn't lost 30 pounds in I don't know how long. And then the next thought was, but you still weigh 270 pounds. Then I kind of get negative on myself. And you know what? I changed my attitude. Just like you said, Corey, I changed my attitude right there. I said, you know what? You've lost 30 pounds. Now you get your butt moving on this treadmill and go. You can do this. And I just, right then, the switch flipped. I mentally made that change in my mind. And, I thought to myself, I am healthy enough to be here. Yeah, I'm a big girl, but I can do this. I'm not in a hospital. I'm not sickly. I can do this. And I never stopped. I got on that treadmill, and I just went Forrest Gump on that thing.
So Rob-Ann, you're definitely living it. You're a registered nurse, a fitness instructor. You've written a book. And talk to us about the other ways that you're carrying this message of hope and to people that are struggling with their weight.
I wrote this book kind of just as a way for me to kind of get all this out there. It was very cathartic for me to think back and kind of go through all of that, all those issues that got me where, to 300 pounds and all the things along the way. So I wrote that book, and I've been exercising, and I was on that treadmill and doing well, and I'm like, I got to do something else. I got to find something else to do here, mix it up a little bit. And so I kind of went into this group exercise class, nervous, didn't want to go. Happened to be a hip-hop dance class of all things. So it was like an accident. I went in there. I was horrible at it, but I thought, these guys are rocking it. They're having fun. The music is thumping. I absolutely loved it. And you know what? I never left. I just kept coming back to that thing. And now I got certified to teach it. I'm a hip-hop dance instructor, and it's unreal. I get out there. I teach those classes. The conference I met Corey at the Obesity Action Coalition conference last week, I was out there to teach the hip hop group exercise for folks out there that are trying to find, maybe something new to try or mix it up, or maybe they're just getting started for the first time like I was, 3.5+ years ago. And so that's what I do. I get out there and fitness can be fun. It should be fun, but you got to get out there and do it. And, I always tell people your fun is out there. Go find it, and so I'm out there doing that. The other cool thing that I get to do, and, for me, my heart is really, really in touch with the kids out there that are struggling, whether they're really super skinny naturally, or maybe they're not being healthy about it, or maybe they're overweight and they've got a problem. Whatever their situation is, I want to motivate them to find it right now, get started, exercise, enjoy yourself, but focus on strength and fitness. Don't hone in on the size of your jeans or what the number on the scale says as your only benchmark. That will steer you off course, and it did for me. I want them to really focus on strength, fitness, how fast can you run? How high can you jump? Are you healthy? Are you enjoying yourself? That's the focus for me, and I any of those kids out there that'll listen, I'll tell them I get to teach a class every Tuesday night at the Fisher's Y. I teach some hip-hop dance, and we are having the best time.
That's great. That is great.
I'll say this much from me and Steve and James and the folks from the OAC, we commend you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud to call you a friend. I'm looking forward to the future, finding some ways where hey, we can all partner, because your story. I mean, again, I said this to you at least probably 4 times now. James and I were there to talk, but I found myself being so touched, because it's like, wow, I could not imagine going from 100 pounds to 300 pounds to back to just being healthy and fit. And by the way, hey, you got what? Not 1, not 2, but what? 3 kids.
3 kids.
And a husband.
That's
and
it.
It's just, you're it, girlfriend. You are truly it, man. And I so commend you.
Oh, well, you know what, Corey, I appreciate that so much. And, it was awesome to be there at that conference, and you guys lit that stage up, let me just tell you right now. And the message that you put out there, was so inspiring for me as well, talking about strength and exercise and the importance of doing that, the importance of attitude. I mean, every single day I wake up and I've got to decide, am I going to recommit to what it takes to stay here? And most often it's heck yeah, but there are days when, I'm not feeling it, but I know what I need to do. I do it anyway.
Listen, look, I told my own sister this not even 2 weeks ago. I said, look, the 3 most dangerous words in the English dictionary when it comes to health is "I'll start tomorrow."
Right.
I'm serious, because she said something, and Donna, if you're listening, I'm not picking on you, because I love you. She literally said, "Oh, I'll start tomorrow," and now mind you, we're at this all-you-can-eat buffet restaurant, and no, seriously, and they're looking at me like, "Why aren't you eating?" I was like, "I'm not doing it. I don't do that anymore. I'm not doing it." So of course, I'm watching them eat, and bro, they had a great time at it. Now, fast forward, she calls me last week and goes, "Oh, by the way, I had to go to my doctor. I had a little scare. Cholesterol's up, blood pressure's up." I'm like, okay, so remember those famous words: "I'll start tomorrow." We can't afford to start.
Yeah.
Start.
Well,
tomorrow.
you got to help change that, Corey. By your response could be, "I'll eat more tomorrow," or I'll sit on the couch tomorrow. It's really about your team, the people in your corner that, if you get into the debating society, if you get into that debate in your head, whether, what you want to do, what you're going to do right now, what you're going to do tomorrow, you're going to lose that debate almost every time. But if you have the right coach in your corner, your chances go up exponentially, and that is really what Raban's story is just yelling out is, I can't do this alone. So for everyone out there that's struggling to do it alone, stop doing it alone. And it doesn't matter if you're a former pro football player or a house mother or wherever you're at with your weight. And if you're not happy, you don't have to struggle alone. So I urge you to go to getyourstrongon.net, get the book.
On YouTube, it's My Road to Strong is if you want 4 minutes and 43 seconds of inspiration, that's my story in a nutshell. It's called My Road to Strong. It's a glimpse of what the book's about as well. It's everything we've just talked about and then some. It touches on anybody who's looking for some hope, some inspiration, and some strength, because we all need it somewhere in our life.
No doubt. Yep. No doubt. We all do it, and that's why I just said too. We're so looking forward to this partnership, because that's what it's about.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's me helping you helping me. Whether it be an encouraging word, whether it be getting you some water, whether it be helping you get on that treadmill, go around that track, whatever it is. It could be 1,000 different things. But you guys heard me also say that one thing about life is that if you live long enough, you will go through something. And if you haven't gone through something, just hold your breath, because it is certainly coming.
That's right. I got to get you to take one of my hip hop classes, Corey.
We do.
You too, Steve.
Okay. Well, where's your next event?
Okay. Well, it's good that you asked. You had asked how I'm getting out there and putting the message out there. I've also been invited to Obesity Help has a national conference coming up in October 4th and 5th. It's going to be right by Disneyland in Anaheim, California. I get to actually check this out. I'm going to be on a panel discussion, and the panel is called From Obese to Athlete. And what a trip that is to be speaking on that subject matter. That it's a possibility that you can go from where I was to where I am, and find yourself somewhere in there. And so I'll be doing that. I'm also, of course, going to be doing the group exercise, teaching some hip hop dance, getting our groove on out there, and it's just going to be a great time. So that's what's coming up next for me.
Well, that's great, Robman. And we thank you again for joining us today, and to our audience for listening to First in Life, and thank you for joining in on yet another Friday, and we look forward to you joining us next week. We hope you have a great show.
Thank you so much. Kudos.
Thank you guys so much.
We're going to keep tracking you, following you, and keep on rocking. Get your strongon.net.
Woo! You know it.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of First in Life. Please visit our website at www.firstinlife.com and join us live every Friday as we tackle talk with purpose.